Hello and welcome to Optimal Game State. Today we're talking about the Blades of the Hollow King, which is a special box with 3 unique character models that was released a while ago and recently got Warcry rules in the most recent FAQ. So the main character in this, they're all heroes in Warcry, but the main character is the one in the middle. He's called Cado. He has 2 books. I've read the one, it was quite enjoyable. And I suspect that the second one has these 2 new characters to go along with them. If we look at our dashboard, I have taken out the death heroes. So you can see them in the kind of darker blue and the darker green. And then in red, we can actually see the fighters in question. So if we look at the bottom first, within the wounds, they're all over 20. And they're within a kind of good range. They're like, none of them seem weak or particularly strong, if that makes sense. Then in the damage, melee actually is quite good for all of them. So you can see that Aurelius is one of the better damage in his points bracket, same as Sissendra. And there is one fighter above Cado, below or in between him and Sissendra for points-wise, and that's the Exemplar from the Ascorgan True Blades. We'll have a look at that in a little bit. But damage-wise, they're all very, very good points-wise, especially for death, where they're actually kind of capping out in a lot of them. So these are already quite interesting models. These are some of the rules that they have for just being within Soulblight Gravelords. So they have their normal reaction, which is a damage reduction one. Damage reduction reactions are always quite good. You're not excited to see them, but when you think you're probably about to get killed and you have an action left, you're going to be able to use them, and that might save your fighter. Not super exciting, but solid. Then the triple is kind of one of the signature moves of the Soulblight Gravelords. It's about bringing your minions. So if one of your minions goes down, you're able to put them back into play, which is very, very good. Okay. And all of them have a control heroes. So we're going to start with Cado. He's got great damage at 8 against T4. He's 5 move, which means he's not blisteringly fast, but 4 is kind of average, is the normal. So being able to move 5 is just that little bit better. So you're going to get an extra 2 inches in your first move. Most of the time, turn 1, people will double move, and then he's going to be able to move and attack. So he's kind of got an extra kind of 3 inches of range, if that kind of makes sense. So having that's always good. 5 toughness means he's going to be relatively difficult to damage, and 28 wounds means there's going to be a lot to get through. So solid. These are all solid numbers. He has 3 abilities beyond the ones you already mentioned. The first 2, so the 2 on the left, are vampire specific. So a lot of the vampires within the Soulblight Gravelords have this terrifying rune mark. So the first one is triple, thirst for blood. If they kill someone, they're able to spend this to get some wounds back. Now, there is an ability called Respite, which is a triple. And Respite can only be done when you don't have anyone nearby. So you can't do it when you're in melee. And it returns wounds equal to the value. Now, thirst for blood, you have to have taken down an enemy fighter. So that's the limitation on it. But it's returning double the value of the ability. And if you're in melee with something else, it still can be used. So good, decent. You might not need it with 28 wounds and a 5 toughness, but always nice to have. The other triple is the Call to the Crimson Feast. So basically it's a +1 attack boost to any of your friendly fighters that are within 6 inches of this. So again, that's the case where if you kill a target and you've got your triple left over, you might use it just to boost nearby people. Yeah, solid. Okay, the quad is the one that is unique to Cado. So it's kind of 2 quads. You get to pick one of the following. The first one is an attack boost, a damage boost. So it's attack and damage. Now, I crunched the numbers on this. So he does 8 damage. It essentially ups it to about 13. So it's about a +5. So if comparing this to your normal rampage where you move and attack for a quad, you'll be getting an extra 8 out of it. So if you're able to double attack, then you're going to get an extra 10 because it's +5 on each attack for the averages. What I'm saying is this particular damage boost is actually good if you already are melee and you have a quad to spend. quads are always based against that rampage ability, so this is kind of a good reflection. The other one is add 3 to move characteristic, so it will be an extra 6 move if it's a double move, and it's also giving them fly. So that means that they should be able to, zoom over intervening terrain and enemy fighters and a bunch of stuff. The key part here is he's already 5 moves, so if you pop this as your quad, you're going to have 8. So with 2 moves, you're going to be able to move 16 inches, and you're going to be able to fly. So that should get you a lot of places. So there might be some objective-based situations which this could be super handy for, and you can get straight into action. Or, if you have a quad turn 1, you might be able to get Cado into a really aggressive position early on. But what are we looking at? Some movement, some damage, some healing. Decent. This is not the model that comes in the box. So this is a separate one. This is an earlier Cado model. And it is actually the model that's on Warcry, but that strictly is not correct. So this model here, I believe, is a 40mm model, but the Cado model from the box set is actually a 50mm model. So if you have this and you haven't built it up yet, you might consider giving it a 50mm base, just so it would be legal in tournaments. So yeah, something to be aware of and be conscious of. They are different. For me, I'm just going to play them as is. I'm not particularly worried about base sizes. It's fine. A comparative model is Prince Duval. So Prince Duval is another vampire. The main vampire lord actually has fly, which is a considerable point sink, whereas this version does not. Now, Cado was 235, Prince Duval is 210, so he is cheaper, but you are seeing a bit of a damage drop, so that 8T4 has gone down to 6.6. He doesn't have access, Prince Duval doesn't have access to that quad, but he has a few other abilities himself, which we won't go into, but he is comparable, and that's worth noting. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing, in that Prince Duval is generally quite a popular model in the Soulblight Gravelords. He's a very pretty model, he's very cool, so, arguably you could run both of them. But yeah, he's a vampire within Soulblight Gravelords and does all the vampire stuff. This is Sissendra. She's also a vampire, but doesn't have that terrifying wound mark. So she doesn't have access to all of those vampiric abilities that we see elsewhere. Now, again, she's move 5, which is fast. Toughness 4, so a little bit less. And 20 instead of that 28 wounds. But that's a healthy amount of wounds. Obviously significantly cheaper than Cado is at 175. Damage is fantastic. So 7.5 against T4, but she goes up to 9 when she's got against T3. What else to say? Fast, damage, decent wounds. It's already a great start. So she doesn't have all of the abilities Cado has. She has the one we were looking at earlier. Her special one is this graceful killer, which I really, really like. So you pick an enemy fighter within 3 inches, place this fighter within 1 inch, so within melee of that enemy fighter. And then after this fighter's final action, you pick a point within 3 inches of it says this fighter, yeah, so it will be within Sissendra. And then you place this fighter as near as possible at that point and more than 1 inch away from any on fighters. Now, there's a lot of interesting things about it. Obviously, if you're within 3 inches of a target, you can graceful killer her in to get to melee. You can double attack, and then at the end of the turn, it's going to graceful killer her out, which is kind of fun. It's also a great movement ability. So if you double move, and then you've got a target that you can kind of teleport over or leap over, you'll be able to pick that target position where you want. And this is, so it does say place within 1 inch of that enemy fighter. You can actually place Sissendra at the far side. So it doesn't say move up to, it says basically pick anywhere within 1 inch of the enemy fighter and place Sissendra there. So, if you have a target, you can basically leap over her, putting her in 1 inches on the far side, and then at the end of the activation, you go an extra 3 inches away from where she was. So that's a considerable stretch. But yeah, more importantly, she's going to run up, she's going to double attack things, and then she's going to get away to safety. So very, very cool ability. We do like that a lot. The Eskurgan Exemplar is an equivalent fighter. So at move 5, 4 toughness and 20 wounds, so they're very similar in that regard, and it has more damage here. It's notable because it's the only one at 5 move that's more efficient, but obviously the Eskurgan Exemplar has its own abilities, but doesn't have that special. There are also, as we will see in a second, some abilities are specific that require the Hollow King's Blades rune mark. So there are some additional reasons that you want to be running Sissendra, but just as a comparative, there is the Eskurgan Exemplar. Now, the Eskurgan Exemplar is 205, and Sissendra is 175, so that's a considerable difference. That's a 30-point switch. Now, you get more damage out of it, but I think she comes out of it looking quite well because the Eskurgan Exemplar, even though the warband isn't necessarily great, the Eskurgan Exemplar is fantastic. Because I've been going through alternative models, I talked about Cado already, and I've got another one for Aurelius. Just want to mention that Avaya Volga could be an option to use with Sissendra. The reason is she can go bat. I don't believe the character necessarily turns into a pile of bats, but the that graceful killer ability would also make sense if it was she switches into a bunch of bats, flies over, makes her attack, yells bat, and then flies off again. So yeah, I like it. Again, we're talking about base size. It will be another issue. I think there's a 32 mil and there's a 40 mil for Sissendra, I think. Anyway, an alternative model. The last one out of the Blades of Hollow King is Aurelius. Quite an interesting figure in that it is the kind of default caster. So we've got melee, which actually, well, we'll talk about in a second, and then has a blast. So that 3/7, 2, 3, 3, 6 is actually a standard kind of magic blast attack that a lot of fighters have. 4 move, 4 toughness, which is actually quite good. Often you'll see these kind of fighters at 3 toughness and then 20 wounds, like healthy figures for this particular kind of fighter. Damage is 3 on that range attack. So fighters like this will like to get a position and then they'll like to do a double attack rather than having to move an attack. So that's where the range element becomes beneficial. Now, in this case, Aurelius has a fantastic melee attack as well at 5.3 against T4. And most of the other caster or sorcerer fighters don't have that element. Right, let's have a look at some of the abilities. So we've got 3 here. So you can see 2 of them are mystic ones that don't require Blades of the Hollow King, so we will see these in other fighters. So the Necrotic Siphon is a double that lets you pull health from one of your minions into Aurelius. So it's a way to kind of top up. And you just have to be kind of make sure you're picking the right targets and leaving them enough health. But it's a way to heal in combat essentially, which can be quite good. We've got the quad Vanel's Dance Macabre, which is a super move or super boost. So again, you're only looking at the minions. So it's all like Gravelord minions, but it does mean if you've got a quad 6, you can pick 6 of them, and then you can get 4 moves out of it, which is some great action efficiency. Obviously, the attacks for the minions are going to be lower than if you were spending the quad on maybe on Cado's ability. You're probably going to get more damage out of it, but there can be circumstances where just that raw action efficiency, even if it's happening with the minions, can be really effective. The third ability, and the one that is unique to Aurelius, is Arcane Expertise. So essentially you pick one of the other 2 fighters, so it has to be visible, so you cannot do it on Aurelius himself. So it's only going to be Cado or Sissendra, and they're able to use Rush, Onslaught, or Respite once during your next activation without using ability dice, and it doesn't count towards their use. So if you need one of those 2 fighters to go super fast, you can get Onslaught on them, and you can give them a free Rush. If you're expecting to do a ton of more damage, you can give them either of them a free Onslaught, and then because you're able to stack it with the extra abilities, that's going to come in extra effective. So it's good. It's good. It basically makes one of your fighters a little bit more powerful, and because you're able to stack all these things at once. And Respite gives them an extra bit of healing if they need to. I assume that you could double Respite if you had a triple. So you could use your Arcane Expertise to give Sissendra it and then use it after yourself. Notably, for the Respite, it doesn't mention what the value of the ability is, which is kind of important. So I would suggest, if you're playing this, assume that the triple value for arcane expertise is the one that is used for that respite. That is a way of resolving that, at least. So yeah, the reason that this is so interesting is, that Aurelius is so interesting, is that this is a fighter that is used. This is a necromancer. The necromancer has his 10 points more, has less melee damage, has one less toughness, and then the same attack profile. And then he has all of the same abilities as Aurelius has, except he doesn't get that arcane expertise. So Aurelius is just a better version of the necromancer. So yeah, that's one to keep in mind. Again, since we're talking about alternative models, this is one I have myself in my collection, Sekar Fang of Nulamia. Again, the base size is an issue because that base size is a oval rather than we're saying 40 mil, we think the box is. But yeah, beautiful model, would make sense for the profile, and I'll probably be running out of that. So, in summary, what do we have? Cado is probably the weakest out of the three, I would imagine. I think they all are really, really good damage, have some great abilities, and fit relatively particular roles for themselves. Now, any of them can get fielded in any of the Death Warbands because they're all heroes. If you want to take all three, you are going to go Soulblight Gravelords because one of them needs to be your leader, and the other two are your two heroes. But yeah, they look like a lot of fun. The box itself is pricey. I think it's probably about €50 for me. I think it's £45, and I think it's $70. But this is GW pricing. You kind of, if you play these games already, you're in for. But they are beautiful models. They have effective rules. I think you can make a pretty good warband with these, and then just pack a ton of minions to move around and do stuff while your vampires focus on actually getting the kills in. And it could be a lot of fun. All right, that's everything for me this week. Have a good week, and I will catch in with you next week.
Thanks for making it all the way to the end. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Each week I put up a new video talking about one of Games Workshop's specialist games. The goal is always to try and make the best possible two-player experience. If this is something you'd find interesting, please subscribe to the channel and comment to let me know what you'd like to see in future.